Ever since I was 12 years old or so, and in sixth grade, I have wondered very frequently, is there any way, shape, or form that we can finally somehow slow down, if not stop, and prevent the Himalayan blackberry from being the kudzu of the west coast of the United States, let alone North America? Because it truly is. And in fact, it might be worse than kudzu for a number of reasons. I have been wanting and plotting for the longest time to be able to eventually become one of the first, if not the first person ever, to learn how the heck and what the heck we can do to completely stop them and if not kill them off permanently. It's that bad. And last night, riding the 20, which is a bus line of tram at home from the southeast side of Portland, I found myself observing once we got up to the hills, so the West Hills in that little canyon area, it seems like another horrifically negatively impactful invader that we can never seem to get rid of, English ivy, actually is able to at least slow down and even keep at bay and prevent growth and spread of the Himalayan blackberries. It's very interesting. If you just ride the 20 both ways, but especially westbound, and you look out both sides of your bus, or you happen to drive, but you're able to do a slow drive, and you really closely observe the two sides of the hill, especially that north side, you're going to find yourself noticing something that I did, which is exactly what I just described, alongside of the fact that one of your first suspicions might be, well, it's probably elevation. It doesn't seem like Himalayan blackberries like really steep elevated plains or cliffs. They don't seem like they can grow there, which is actually entirely untrue. Not just because they are Himalayan, they are from the Himalayas. That's already out the window. But on top of that, if you pay close attention anywhere, let alone in the Northwest, anywhere else that we have a huge Himalayan blackberry problem, you're going to quickly see them growing on sheer cliffs. You're going to see them growing all over, up and down, really steep hillsides and mountains like this, and even like this. It's crazy how nothing seems to stop them. But English ivy, therefore, is the only other possibility of how and why it's been so slowed and even kept into little isolated pockets here and there. Because I noticed another thing about that is that the thinner and the less English ivy there was, the more Himalayan blackberries there were. You had to have one or the other, pretty much, apparently, because they're both that invasive, they're both that voracious, and they're both that bad. You just can't get rid of either of them. Both of them have their reasons, and the main reasons are, in fact, I think it's the same with English ivy, is it's almost semi self-parasitic, where technically when you see one Himalayan blackberry cane or plant, or you see some English ivy over here, it's not actually multiple plants, it's one plant with everything else even miles away because of the fact that they have roots that go straight down into the ground. And then once they go straight down to the ground, they always go to a roughly an average of 3 feet. It's usually 3 feet and deeper. They'll send their main root shoots directly down into the ground. They'll send side going shoots, so horizontal, that'll go out and then they will shoot up a new plant off of that same exact taproot. They have these really weird taproot systems like that. And they're all directly interconnected, which is one of the main reasons why it's almost impossible to get rid of them, besides the fact that it doesn't matter where they are, or what kind of soil or lack thereof they have. They even seem like they figured out how the heck to root into rocks, which is absolutely insane. It makes you wonder how the heck you could get rid of them. It does seem impossible. I've always believed sincerely that using native plants, we just have to figure out what the native plants are that are missing that actually can compete at the same level or actually outcompete Himalayan blackberries in order to push them back and start to have them slowly die off and move along, basically move further and further away from where you have those plants at. In the future, I'm definitely intending to do that when I get my ability to go out, buy a bunch of land, and do wildland restoration. I'm intending to immediately not just restore the native environment to all of its former glory as much as possible, including returning a lot of the plants that are missing, like mock oranges and things like that, but also being able to go and test those things to figure out which ones really help keep them back. So my observation was interesting because I sat there and I was thinking after we passed through those areas, what about the English ivy would somehow prevent and stop Himalayan blackberry growth and not allow even their root systems, with how impossible it is to control them? Or how is it that the English ivy is able to keep it at bay? And then it kind of clicked to me. I think it's because of the type of roots English ivy has. Because English ivy, though very similar in root growth and plant growth like the Himalayan blackberry, in fact, it might even be identical if I recall correctly, the main difference between their root systems is that Himalayan blackberry roots, though thick, they're like this. And they're very fibrous, and they're actually a lot of times not like really bouncy kind of woody. What is English ivy. English ivy has incredibly, just everywhere the roots go. They don't just form the typical root balls like our introduced grasses do in our subdivisions. They have the thick, long roots that radiate and even curl and almost tie each other in knots. They have the main taproot that I was talking about, like the Himalayan blackberry does, and those side shoots. They have them all different sizes, all different types and forms at once. But the main problem root system is that main one. Theirs are average about like this, if it's a mature plant, like this big. Sometimes the roots can get that big around. I mean, they are massive. Massive roots. But they bounce. So as soon as you try to do anything with them, they bounce. They will bounce right off of anything you even try to hack at. You use an axe, and you won't actually usually make progress, not just because they're tough, but because they literally ricochet everything off of them. They are so tough and bouncy that you can't really destroy those roots at all. And on top of that, they, like I said, they are extremely tough, like way tougher than the Himalayan blackberry roots are. And Himalayan blackberry roots are really tough to cut through. But if you thought a tree root was tough, it's not. It's the easiest. It's like cutting through paper. No pun intended. Not for English ivy roots. Those things are almost impossible to even get the sharpest of tools through. Like loppers can't really bounce if you do it right. But you're not getting any loppers, the sharpest, biggest loppers in the universe. You're not getting through that. You're not getting a chainsaw through it. It's insane how tough they are. And unlike some of the hollowness, there's usually like a tiny little hollow core in not just the canes, but also in the root systems of Himalayan blackberries. English ivy doesn't have that. It's literally like it's a fucking tree trunk all the way through, except the toughest tree trunk you'll ever encounter. And because of that, and the almost spider webbing and stuff, or veins through your body, I'm curious if that's why it prevents completely in some areas and otherwise aggressively slows down the progress of the spread of Himalayan blackberries, English ivy, is because of those root systems that they have. And unlike Himalayan blackberries, which are bushes technically that send out canes, these are a carpet, so a forest floor plant. Again, making me very curious. I mean, these roots of these English ivy will also go directly through the thickest, toughest bark on a tree, and it will actively strangle the trees to death. Just like the Himalayan blackberries, they are relentless, and they literally are so devastating for the environments that they are in that they're not supposed to be within. They kill off tons of forests and tons of tree all on their own all the time by strangling them slowly to death. But they probably form this thick blanket, I'm assuming, with their roots, which is what stops the Himalayan blackberry spread. I'm assuming that's what it is. But that's just an observation I had, and I wanted to document it like this because it's a good idea to do that for sure. And even over English ivy, I have my personal vendetta instead of with it, with Himalayan blackberries. Because you can go to what you would think is the most rural, isolated, wild places, and you will literally see those fucking plants there. It's almost a guarantee you're going to see at least a few shoots here and there, a few canes here and there. which is insane because they just spread and they spread and they spread and they spread and they spread so rapidly. And another pain in the ass about Himalayan blackberry plants and roots and everything else is even if you do get them out, you can burn them and burn them and burn them. You can burn them for 24, 48 straight hours. You can have them completely deprived of all soil, all access to the ground or soil or water or any nutrients at all. And they still will appear dead. They'll get all crispy. They'll get all decaying and falling apart. But literally, if they have even the slightest tip of a freaking fairy hair root make contact with water or anything else, they are immediately back to being full, vigorous, and lively again. Like that, like overnight. It's insanely infuriating because people have tried to do that. We are so desperate around here that we've tried so many different tactics to try to get rid of them. We tried insanely intensive, ultra high temperature, aggressive burning methods where we will burn and burn and burn at high temperatures for days straight, days and nights straight, without a break. And somehow those fuckers still immediately spring back and point to life within like a week. It should be impossible and it's not. So yeah, I have a wicked strong vendetta against Himalayan blackberries well over English ivy. Because English ivy is not like it doesn't have kryptonite. The natural environment slash daylight, lack of water, things like that, a lot of times, all the typical environmental things can be its kryptonite, and you'll actually see them legitimately die off. Or that it seems like they might have an age thing, and also they're not like, it's not like they're not prone to fungus infections and other infections or parasites or nematodes or anything like that. They a lot of times will make a very ill plant, and sometimes will even successfully kill one with English ivy. With Himalayan blackberries, they have literally nothing. Nothing in all those hundreds of years that we've had them here, ever since introduction, and never once has anything adapted to be able to handle them. To be able to give them a disease, to be able to give them an illness, to be able to give them a fungal infection, to be able to give them parasites. No parasites can touch them. It doesn't matter what the fuck. They could probably have an ant colony in them, and the world's largest ant colonies in their roots, and they would still act like nothing changed. Like these, they've sometimes are like coated in the thickest of nasties of mold. They have all the different typical like parasitic infections. Sometimes you'll find in the roots, and these fuckers are acting like nothing is different. They're as healthy as they've ever been. They seem genuinely like they have no such thing as a disease that they could possibly touch them. No such thing as an enemy, a predator, nothing. And they got to be fucking stopped. But anyway, I digress. I just wanted to give that observation because I've been wondering if there's literally anything out there, and the only thing that seems like it, so far from this observation, it proves the only thing that I think anything's ever been observed, maybe even I'm the first up to pay enough attention to realize this, is English ivy seems like it could actually be a kryptonite to at least the spread of Himalayan blackberries. It seems like it's an actual equal competitor, if not a slightly edged out competitor, which is kind of crazy to think about because unfortunately that's like a presidential election in any country in this world, let alone here in the United States. It's a pick your poison game. Which poison do you want to ingest and die to? That's pretty much what you're selecting. It's stupid.